I want to turn to this panel that the White House is convening. The person who is reportedly spearheading the White House climate change panel, climate security panel, is called William Happer, who has a long history of downplaying and denying climate change. In 2010, Dr. Happer testified before the House Select Committee on Energy and Global Warming, and he said the following, quote unquote, "The warming will be small compared to the natural fluctuations in the Earth's temperature, and that the warming and increased CO2 will be good for mankind." Do you agree with Dr. Happer that this increased CO2 will be good for mankind?
No, clearly I do not. I think it's similar to the argument that was just being made. No, the problem we have today is that greenhouse gases, I mean, this is basic science. Why is it called a greenhouse? Because it behaves like a greenhouse. The heat is contained within the Earth's atmosphere and trapped. And as these gases gather in the atmosphere, they are what is responsible for the continual warming. It's a basic scientific fact. And the result is the amount of carbon, the estimates by scientists are, I forget the exact number of gigatons, but we are going to have to get massive gigatonnage of CO2 out of the atmosphere. We're going to have to reduce it to a net zero, net carbon, no carbon, low carbon economy by about, let's say 2050 is the accepted level. And between now and then, we have plenty of time to make the changes if we are smart and committed to making those changes.
Yes.
But the amount of CO2 we have today is accelerating, and unfortunately, China, even as they are moving rapidly into the solar market, and even as they've coaled some old coal-fired power plants, are geared up to bring 250 megawatts of coal-fired power online.
Yes.
India the same.
Secretary Kerry, I know that Mr. Massey has a science degree. I have a BS in mechanical engineering. Of course, I practice the BS part now on Capitol Hill. But Dr. Happer recently compared climate science to Nazi propaganda. He said, quote, "This is George Orwell. This is the Germans are the master race," referring to climate change. "The Jews are the scum of the earth. It's that kind of propaganda." Those were Dr. Happer's words. And in 2014 interview, Dr. Happer said, and I quote, "The demonization of carbon dioxide is just like the demonization of poor Jews under Hitler. Carbon dioxide is actually a benefit to the world, and so were the Jews." Do you have a comment on Dr. Happer's comments?
I think I've already commented on his comments. I said it earlier. I think what we really ought to try to focus on is the bigger issue here. Why, after 20 years of consensus, Republican and Democrat alike, why, after generals and admirals and guys who've laid their lives on the line for their entire life for our country and have made the judgment already, Republican and Democrat alike have acted on this? Why suddenly should we have a secret effort within the White House, led by somebody like Mr. Happer, or being put together by him at least, that is geared to reevaluate something where there is no legitimate call for that reevaluation? That's really the issue.
Secretary Hagel, what is your comment or thought about why this would be a secretive panel? What purpose would secluding these people in closed proceedings have with regard to this issue on the part of the White House?
Well, one would have to suspect a motive behind the effort to put together this panel. If the motive was transparent, clear, try to find out what we should do in this country about this issue based on science, based on facts, based on what we do know today, then why wouldn't you do it transparently? Why wouldn't you open it up and involve everybody and want others' opinion? So I would answer your question that way. I don't know what's behind it.
What are they hiding, right?
But I think anytime it's that closed, it's always, it brings about a certain amount of suspicion as to what's the motive behind it. And as you have noted, Mr. Harper's background and comments, it's not very enlightening, or it's not very likely that they would choose to open this up and make this a very transparent process for the good of the cause and for what the objective should be.